The View co-host Sunny Hostin's husband, Emmanuel Hostin, has been accused of federal insurance fraud.
Sunny Hostin, her husband accused of committing federal insurance fraud in a lawsuit.
The courtroom was silent, the air so thick with tension you could practically cut it with a scalpel. An irony not lost on those who had followed the dizzying descent of Dr Emmanuel Hostin, once celebrated as a top-tier orthopedic surgeon in Manhattan's elite medical circles. But now, he wasn't just a surgeon and he wasn't celebrated. He was a convicted criminal sentenced to life in prison for orchestrating one of the most brazen and complex insurance fraud schemes in recent memory. The ripple effects of his actions had burst open a Pandora's box of scandal, implicating not just him but dragging his wife, Sunny Hostin, straight into the storm.
According to the documents, he knowingly provided fraudulent medical and other healthcare services, including arthroscopic surgeries.
It was almost inconceivable. Dr. Hostin had been seen as the epitome of class and professionalism, a man who operated on high-profile clients and built his career on the promise of healing. But behind the pristine white coat and the polished demeanor, prosecutors argued, lay a man who had turned medicine into a money-printing machine. The allegations were staggering: unnecessary surgeries performed on patients who didn't need them, fraudulent billing practices that milked insurance companies for millions, and lavish kickbacks disguised as investment opportunities. The sheer audacity of it all made it more than a legal case. It was the kind of scandal you couldn't make up. And then, of course, there was Sunny. If Dr. Hostin's fall from grace was a shock to the medical world, Sunny's entanglement in the mess was nothing short of explosive for the world of daytime television. The beloved co-host of The View had built her brand on being outspoken, fearless, and above all, ethical. But now, whispers were growing louder, whispers that Sunny might not just be an innocent bystander in this debacle. Could it be that she had benefited, knowingly or not, from the very fraud that had landed her husband behind bars? And if so, how far did her involvement go?
So we know Sunny Hostin and her husband, Dr. Emmanuel Hostin, are preparing for a legal battle to fight accusations that he committed federal insurance fraud.
Legally, Sunny wasn't named as a defendant in the original RICO case, but that hadn't stopped the public from asking questions. How could someone as sharp and detail-oriented as Sunny claim she had no idea what was going on right under her nose? After all, the couple shared a life of undeniable luxury, sprawling properties, designer wardrobes, and a lifestyle that most people could only dream of. And now, with Dr. Hostin's conviction, every inch of that life was under scrutiny. Federal investigators were reportedly combing through financial records, looking for evidence that Sunny might have been complicit, or at the very least that she had turned a blind eye.
And it's a very serious crime. In fact, it's one of the largest, if not the largest, RICO case in New York's history.
But the fallout wasn't just financial. The scandal had cracked open a deep fissure in Sunny's carefully curated public image. Social media was ablaze with accusations and theories, with some calling for her immediate resignation from The View and others leaping to her defense. She's being dragged through the mud for her husband's mistakes, one fan tweeted. But others weren't so forgiving. No way she didn't know, one particularly scathing post read. You don't live that kind of life without asking questions about where the money's coming from. And then there was the matter of timing. Rumors swirled that Sunny had been planning to flee to Canada just as the investigation into her husband's practice was heating up. While her representatives denied the claims, the optics weren't great. Even more damning were reports that federal agents had issued a property arrest on one of the couple's Manhattan properties, effectively freezing their assets while the legal drama unfolded. It was a move that signaled just how serious the authorities were about getting to the bottom of this tangled web.
Oh, he was scamming insurance companies from taxi drivers, Uber drivers, and Lyft drivers. He was performing unnecessary surgeries and then providing fraudulent medical services in exchange.
The lawsuit itself read like something out of a true crime thriller. Dr. Hostin was accused of being part of a sprawling conspiracy involving nearly 200 defendants, all of whom were allegedly engaged in a scheme to exploit New York's no-fault auto insurance laws. The system, designed to ensure that accident victims could get medical care without the hassle of proving fault, had become a lucrative loophole for unscrupulous providers. According to the complaint, Dr. Hostin had performed unnecessary arthroscopic surgeries on patients who had sustained nothing more than minor injuries in low-impact car accidents. The insurance company footing the bill, American Transit, claimed it was a textbook case of medical fraud, and they had the paperwork to prove it.
Emmanuel denied the allegations via a statement through his lawyer, telling Daily Mail that his client, quote, denies each and every allegation and that the lawsuit is a blanket, scattershot, meritless lawsuit.
But the allegations didn't stop there. Prosecutors argued that Dr Hostin had a financial stake in the very surgical centers where these procedures were performed, creating a perverse incentive to rack up as many operations as possible. In exchange for his participation, they claimed, he received kickbacks, disguised as dividends or other cash distributions. It was a house of cards built on greed, and now it had come crashing down. Sunny, for her part, had been vocal in her husband's defense, at least at first. In a statement released shortly after the lawsuit was filed, she called the allegations meritless and accused American Transit of using her celebrity status to wage a smear campaign. This is about an insurance company trying to avoid paying what they owe, the statement read. But as the evidence mounted and the case moved to trial, her public support grew noticeably quieter. By the time the guilty verdict was handed down, she was nowhere to be seen.
And Caroline Leavitt isn't just making headlines, she's also rewriting history. At 27, the New Hampshire native has become the youngest White House press secretary ever.
Behind the scenes, however, the fallout was reportedly catastrophic. Sources close to the couple described a household in turmoil, with Sunny allegedly furious at the damage Dr Hostin's actions had done to her career. She's always been the moral compass of The View, one insider revealed. This completely undermines everything she stands for. And yet, there were those who believed Sunny wasn't just a victim in all of this. Rumors swirled that she had played a more active role than anyone realized, perhaps even helping to launder money through her various media ventures. It was speculation, sure, but in the court of public opinion, speculation was more than enough to fan the flames. And then came the whispers of her arrest. Though unconfirmed, multiple outlets reported that federal agents were building a case against Sunny herself, with charges that could range from aiding and abetting to outright conspiracy. If true, it would mark a stunning escalation in an already jaw-dropping saga. But what really set tongues wagging was the possibility that Sunny had been tipped off about the investigation and had made plans to skip town. The idea of her fleeing to Canada was almost too wild to believe, and yet it was all anyone could talk about.
Stuff. Let's just not forget who she is. She's been, for years, lecturing America about morality, inequality, systemic failures.
As the rumors intensified, so did the scrutiny on The View. Could ABC really afford to keep Sunny on the panel with such a massive cloud hanging over her head? Or would they be forced to cut ties to protect the show's reputation? The network had already faced backlash over some of Sunny's more controversial comments in recent months, and this scandal only added fuel to the fire. If Sunny was indeed implicated in her husband's crimes, it wasn't just her career that was on the line, it was the integrity of the entire show. But for now, the questions remained unanswered. What did Sunny know, and when did she know it? Was she truly an innocent party, or had she been complicit in the scheme all along? And perhaps most chillingly, how much deeper did this scandal go? Because if there was one thing everyone agreed on, it was this: the story was far from over.
It does not look well when your name ends up with 200 people in a RICO investigation. This is the biggest investigation since Giuliani shook the tree and a bunch of mobsters fell out, right? This is big stuff. And so, and thank you for bringing that video. It sure is ironic that she's up there.
And just like that, the spotlight turned even harsher on Sunny Hostin, as the scandal began to weave its way into the fabric of her very public and very polarizing role on The View. If there's one thing the audience of daytime television thrives on, it's drama. But this was chaos on steroids, and Sunny was smack in the middle of it. The timing couldn't have been worse for the network. While Sunny faced down the fallout of her husband's conviction and the swirling rumors of her own alleged involvement, the dynamics on The View had already been teetering on the edge of combustion. Now, the show wasn't just a powder keg, it was an active volcano, with every episode threatening to erupt live on air.
Let me say someplace that could really use a lot of cutting. You know, Elon has very many, what do you call it?
Government contracts?
Yeah. I think, because I don't remember, maybe y'all heard it, but I don't remember looking for an armored car. And I don't remember, I don't.
For months, tensions had been bubbling between Sunny and her conservative counterpart, Elisa Farah Griffin. What started as spirited debates on the show's infamous Hot Topics segment had morphed into something far uglier. Interruptions, outright hostility, and moments so awkward that even Whoopi Goldberg, the show's unflappable moderator, had to step in to keep the peace. But the friction wasn't just ideological. Industry insiders whispered that Alyssa had grown tired of Sunny's moral high ground, her relentless confidence in being right on every issue, and was quietly relishing the scandal that had now engulfed her co-host. The View thrives on conflict, one insider spilled, but there's a difference between a fiery debate and a full-on personal war. And Sunny and Alyssa? The cracks in their relationship weren't just visible to insiders. They were playing out in real time for millions of viewers. During one particularly heated episode, Sunny had launched into one of her signature monologues about systemic inequality, a topic she often championed with passion and poise. But this time, Alyssa wasn't having it. "Let me stop you right there," she snapped, cutting Sunny off mid-sentence. "You can't sit here and preach about integrity while your family is under investigation. It's hypocritical and frankly it's insulting to the viewers." The room went silent. The audience gasped audibly. And Sunny, for a split second, she froze. Then, ever the seasoned professional, she shot back with a chilling calmness. "You don't get to question my integrity, Alyssa. Not when you worked for the administration that built its brand on lies." It was a mic drop moment, sure, but the tension was palpable, and it was clear to anyone watching that this wasn't just for show. This was personal. But here's the thing. While the drama with Alyssa made for must-see TV, it was Sunny's off-camera controversies that had the network scrambling behind the scenes. ABC's executives were reportedly in crisis mode, holding emergency meetings to figure out how to handle the fallout. Should they stand by Sunny, as they'd done with other controversial hosts in the past, or would they cut ties to save the show's reputation? The stakes couldn't have been higher. The View wasn't just a talk show, it was a cultural institution, a platform where politics, pop culture, and personal stories collided in a way that no other show could replicate. But now, with one of its key players embroiled in a scandal of this magnitude, the future of the show itself was in question.
Yesterday, Elon Musk took his son X to a press conference. I did not name the child. And I don't want to hear any more mess about our names, okay? Okay? Oh. Anywho, he took little X.
Funny. A little Instagram.
And it wasn't just Sunny's integrity that was being called into question, it was her judgment. Critics dug up every controversial statement she'd ever made on air, using them as ammunition to paint her as a hypocrite. Remember when she called white women who voted for Trump uneducated? That comment alone had sparked a firestorm of backlash, with many accusing her of being out of touch and divisive. Or the time she compared America's treatment of black people to China's treatment of ethnic minorities. That one had conservative media outlets frothing at the mouth, demanding an apology that never came. Now those same critics were gleefully pointing to the scandal as proof that Sunny's moral indignation had always been performative.
You know what? X is an adorable name, and perhaps a grown woman who named herself Whoopi should refrain from mocking a 4-year-old for the name his parents gave him. Yes, Whoopi picked that name for herself. She's actually Karen Elaine Johnson. Now, how did Karen become Whoopi?
And yet, Sunny's defenders were just as vocal. Her fans argued that the backlash was rooted in something far more insidious, a coordinated effort to take down one of the most prominent women of color in daytime television. They hate her because she's fearless, one supporter tweeted, because she speaks truth to power even when it makes people uncomfortable. It was a compelling narrative, but even her most loyal followers couldn't ignore the elephant in the room. If Sunny had truly been complicit in her husband's crimes, or even if she'd just looked the other way, what did that say about the values she so passionately espoused on air? Meanwhile, the rumors about her potential arrest were gaining traction, fueled by cryptic headlines and speculative tabloid reports. Sunny had stayed silent on the matter, refusing to address the allegations directly, but her absence from several recent episodes of The View hadn't gone unnoticed. The official line was that she was taking time to focus on her family, but behind the scenes, whispers of a possible suspension were growing louder. Was ABC quietly distancing itself from its embattled co-host, or was Sunny using her time away to strategize her next move? Either way, the optics weren't great, and as the rumors continued to swirl, one question loomed large. If Sunny was innocent, why wasn't she fighting harder to clear her name?
Totally different perspective on this. I don't really know what happened with this. The facts will come out. What I have a problem with is the core of who this woman is. Unlike you, I don't watch The View, bro. All I do is see clips.
I know it's just like twice a day.
But here's all I hear from her. America's violent, America's racist, America's bad. Okay.
And then there was the matter of Sunny's relationship with her co-hosts, particularly Whoopi Goldberg. For years, Whoopi had been the glue holding The View together, a steadying presence amid the chaos of live television. But even she seemed to be losing patience with Sunny's increasingly fraught presence on the panel. During a recent episode, when the conversation veered toward accountability in public life, Whoopi had made a pointed remark that many interpreted as a dig at Sunny. It's easy to talk about doing the right thing when you're not the one under the microscope, but when it's your turn, that's when we see what you're really made of. The comment hung in the air like a grenade, and Sunny's tight-lipped smile did little to hide the tension. At the center of it all was the growing sense that Sunny's scandal wasn't just her own. It was a reflection of the broader cultural and political divides that The View had always sought to address. Was she a victim of a system that punished outspoken women of color more harshly than their white counterparts? Or was she a cautionary tale about the dangers of hypocrisy in the age of social media? The truth, as always, was likely somewhere in between. But in the court of public opinion, nuance didn't stand a chance against the drama of a good scandal. And here's where it gets even murkier. Some industry insiders believe the scandal is being deliberately weaponized, not just against Sunny, but against the show itself. There are people who've been gunning for The View for years, one source claimed. They hate what it represents. They hate that it gives women, particularly liberal women, a platform to speak their minds. If that's true, Sunny's scandal might just be the perfect storm. A personal tragedy turned public spectacle, used as a tool to undermine one of the most influential shows on the television. But what do you think? Is Sunny Hostin being unfairly targeted? Or is there more to this story than meets the eye? And what does this mean for The View as a whole? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and trust us, this is one story we're going to keep watching. Stay tuned, because if there's one thing we know for sure is that this drama is far from over. I'll see you in the next one.